Yep. Your voice is perfectly clear as well as the video feed.
Yeah. I have to tell whoever is in the workshop that you don't have to worry about a lot of mathematics like yesterday's workshop. Don't be scared.
Oof. Burn.
Yeah. No back propagation algorithms or no taking differentials of differentials and putting it into another layer. Yeah, none of that.
I should probably code this and post from the page.
Is the chat option on or
Yeah. Yes, Pranay, I think. Are you unable to access the chart?
I cannot see the chats.
Okay. Okay, just a second. I'll look into that. But I think it's an issue with MS Teams. Like the chat has been enabled, and like we can access it, and the other attendees can access it. Maybe because it's like you're not added to the team. Maybe it's because of that.
I send you a link on in the chat. So could you check your WhatsApp and share it?
Yep, on it. Just a minute. Pranay, the link has been shared.
Yeah, all right. So whoever has access to laptops, they could just open the link first and try to run it, see if it's working. The others, it's okay. We'll not focus more on the code and running it on your laptop. So if somebody is watching from the mobile, they could also stay on the shop. Not an issue. So should we get started in sometime? We'll wait for a few more minutes. And
yeah, 1 or 2 minutes. Yes.
And
Meanwhile, I think. Meanwhile, I think I can take this time to sort of introduce you for the few people who are not still aware.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So people we have with us, Mr. Pranay M S. He is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur itself. He came into the college in 2012 and graduated in 17. After that, he went on to pursue his PhD from IISc in ecology, and now he is working on a creative AI startup, Tansen.AI. He's very passionate and like as much as I can tell, very proficient in GANs and other methods for art generation using machine learning and deep learning, and he'll be discussing that with us today. So yep, stay tuned for the session, guys, and don't forget to call your friends. Let's have as many people as possible benefit from the presentation. Yep. That's about it from my side, Pranay. I think you can take over and we can get started. A few more people will join, but I think they'll be able to follow. So it's cool. Meanwhile, one small thing, guys, like whatever problem you're facing regarding the stream, any doubts or anything, please put it in the chat so we can help in time. Thank you.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, Pranay, it's visible.
Is it in the full screen or?
It's full screen.
Yeah. Okay. And let's see how many people we have on the workshop. There are more than 80 future Picassos and Dallis in the workshop. So let's start the interesting talk about the history of art and art. And coming into talking about art, it's interesting to me, and it will be interesting to everyone, because we all, as a child, we all started learning even language or anything before. We started out by just drawing some random shapes, some circles, some triangles. So it's an inborn tendency that we have to create art, and over the time that people keep on losing that creative spark they have. So I hope this workshop brings back that creative spark in you, and you'll be able to generate insane creative ideas and also able to implement them in real life. And another disclaimer is that all the artworks used in this presentation are made using AI. And when I talk about AI, we cannot really say all of these models are real AIs or just some big data models which are trained to achieve some results. So for the time being, let's call these AI models, and let's see. So what I did is that I asked some questions to OpenAI GPT-3 DaVinci AI model. So it's a AI model where you can ask some questions. It will give you some answers. So are you guys excited to see the results? So I asked, the first question was that what is art? So the AI replied, art can be defined in a number of ways, but generally it can be seen as a form of self-expression, where an artist uses their creativity to communicate their ideas, thoughts, or feelings. Okay. And I was curious why humans, as a species, why we started to make art, and the art actually evolved from cave paintings to the much more diverse creative forms which exist today. So I asked the question, why did caveman create art? So the AI said, this is a question that has puzzled historians and archaeologists for years. One theory is that cavemen may have started making drawings on the walls as a form of communication or to record events that took place. And it says, another possibility is that they simply enjoyed creating art for art's sake. Isn't that very profound, guys? And I asked, what will art look like from 1,000 years from now? So excuse my wrong English, but the AI has it has learned to ignore your grammatical errors as well. So the answer was that this is impossible to predict, as it is unclear how technology and society will change over the next 1,000 years. It is possible that art will become more digital and abstract, or it may remain largely unchanged. And I tell you guys, the GPT model, it is trained based on more than 2.5 billion parameters. And the bigger models right now, they have been trained for more than 100 billion parameters. So it's a very clever and intelligent AI system. And I asked it, what kind of artistic mediums will people use in the future? So again, it said, this is impossible to predict, as it is unclear how technology and society will change over the next 1,000 years. However, it is possible that new artistic mediums will be developed, or that existing mediums will be used in new and innovative ways. And guys, each time you interact with this AI model, it actually learns from what you had given before. So if you see, there is a pattern that it's talking about this 1,000 years, even though this question that I asked does not actually mention about the 1,000 years, because it took it from the previous interactions that I was making with it. And I asked it, tell me, what do you consider as good art? And the AI said, this is a difficult question to answer, as art is subjective, and what one person may consider to be good art, another person may not. Okay. So I was really curious if AI had any imaginations of any art. So I asked it this question: have you imagined any art? And it said yes. I asked it, what was it? And it said, I imagined a digital artwork that was created using AI. The artwork was abstract and consisted of a series of geometric shapes in different colors. Can you show me how it is? So are you guys excited to see what the AI made? But it gave me this reply. I'm not sure how to show you the artwork as it exists only in my imagination. It's very clever at dodging some questions. But then I was really curious about how the artwork was, and I asked it what colors are there, and it said the colors in the artwork are mostly muted, but there are also some brighter colors mixed in. And I asked it what are the geometrical shapes. The geometrical shapes in the artwork are mostly triangles and circles, it said. So I asked it, what made you think of that art form? The idea for the art form came to me while I was thinking about how AI can be used to create art. Remember, guys, what I was telling you earlier about how it learns from the interactions that you are already having, and the theme where the AI has thought about the new art it was making. It's actually based on what we were uh, giving it as different inputs. And I was very curious about this question, whether how can AI change art? And it said AI can change art by providing new tools and methods for artists to create their work. For example, AI can be used to generate new images or patterns based on a set of parameters provided by the artist. AI can also be used to create digital artwork that mimic the style of a particular artist. And this is another interesting question which everyone is wondering. Will AI cause designers to lose their jobs, or will AI cause more people to lose their jobs? And it said, this is difficult to predict as it is unclear how widely AI will be adopted by the art and design community. It is possible that AI could cause some designers to lose their jobs, but it is also possible that AI will simply be used as a tool to help designers create new and innovative designs. So based on the prompts, based on the replies that I got from the DaVinci GPT, so I took all of these different inputs. So it was a digital artwork created using AI, and there is abstract, and it's very abstract. There are geometrical shapes in different colors, and the colors are muted. There are circles and triangles, and I gave these inputs to another image generation GAN model, and these are the images that's developed from the idea of the AI. So, and look at how interestingly it has stick to what were given as inputs. It has muted colors. The shapes are mostly triangles and circles. And but yeah, interestingly, I asked the AI this one question: if the colors in the artwork is in the visible human spectrum, and what the reply the AI gave was that the colors in the artwork which it imagined is actually not in the human vision spectrum. And it was a tricky situation for me to then develop artwork which we can actually perceive. But let's see, this is what the AI had created, and apparently this is not in the human visible spectrum according to the AI, but it has it has stayed true to the initial inputs that we had given. There are triangles, there are circles, and it's mostly muted and distorted. It's really creative. So I have another thing to say about computers. So the leading computer scientists say that things which can be computed, they can be modeled. And when it comes to art, and creativity, can we really compute creativity or art? Can we really do that? That's a real interesting question that we will have to think about. And I'll show you some interesting artworks. So this artist called Wishby, and this is his only piece of art that he makes. And these are a set of gummy bears, and they are holding a mugshot label, mugshot poster on their hand. And this artwork is widely displayed over everywhere. So this is the Burning Man festival in USA, and this installation is there in a lot of different places in many different countries.
A lot of my art is pop art and pop culture. So the gummy bear was a piece that I wanted to do. What's commonly used in some pop art is mugshot pieces. I have a sweet tooth, and gummy bears came to mind. I was like, what if I juxtapose gummy bears against Department of Corrections and kind of create this contrast of essentially innocence lost? And for me, it was kind of like, wait, what did he do? How did that happen? I like people to attach their own stories to it, so whatever they can relate to, like implement their message and create their story.
One small step for man, one big step for gummy bears.
Yeah, when it comes to art, maybe being very simple and abstract would be a interesting idea to go forward. Because art, when you talk about art, creating an art, it is about the audience as well. You want to invoke some emotional response. You want to invoke some thoughts in their mind. You have to captivate them, and to do that, there are many ways. It could have a lot of elements in the whole art piece that you're trying to make, or it could be a very simple small image. So for an example, I think you all might have come across these images. These are called the CryptoPunks, and these were one of the first NFT collectibles which became widely popular. And imagine one image of this; it is worth $11.75 million. And I guess the reason why the CryptoPunks is huge success is because of the simplicity in the artwork, and most of it is algorithmically generated, and the characters are uh, uh, defined and coded to have unique iterations coming out. And this is some simple data and data job. So what I want to say is that art can be anything, and uh, AI can create incredibly beautiful images. So you can ask AI anything, and what are you going to ask it that will give you some very interesting results. So I asked it, what is 0 divided by 0? And these are the images created by the AI. And I mistakenly put 0 divided by Zorro, and it created some cool anime characters. And you can also ask it some very weird images, like pug dogs in royal costumes with laboratory equipments. And yeah. And you can also ask it some really profound questions. So who's ready to see the meaning of life? So the AI said the meaning of life is, yeah, yeah. I regret asking the AI this question because it got me more confused right now. So let's take a moment to look at that picture, and let's try to imagine what might it be trying to convey, or is it based on just some um, learning algorithms based on some image recognition or diffusion models. And I try to generate more of these out of the meaning of life question, and it generated more images. And you can see there are some interesting aspects to these pictures. There is a sky, there are waves, there are sunlight, the people, and but one thing that I really noticed is that some of these images have these people or entities holding hands. And what do you think the AI is trying to tell us? It is the meaning of life about companionship or togetherness, or is it about friendship, or it could be anything. So before looking at these images and fine tuning our life choices according to what AI had told us what the meaning of life is, let's really look at the question if we can really trust the AI. Is the AI faking the creativity or consciousness? That's another important question that we will have to ask, because what we might call as creativity would be some very simple set of parameters for an AI system like this. So it could easily trick us to think that it is intelligent or conscious. And at this moment, I would like to ask my friend to come on the video and ask some questions or lead some interesting topics to discuss. Vinay, can you hear me? Vinay Bhaskar.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
I'm Vinay Bhaskar. I
will give you an introduction. So Vinay Bhaskar is a huge skeptic of AI. He does not believe that AI could actually replace humans, or he's a AI skeptic. So let's hear some of his thoughts. Can we trust the AI? Is it really conscious, or is it faking the creativity?
I believe we don't have to think of AI as some separate entity other than human beings. So basically, we like to believe in an anthropocentric view of the entire evolution, that all the evolutionary processes led to us human beings come to this part of the consciousness that we are here with. But what I feel basically is it's the consciousness that is evolving itself. So in the beginning, there was a prokaryote with no nucleus, and consciousness wanted a centralized system where it can have all the rules and regulations. So they came up with a nucleus, and then many more eukaryotes came up and they became tissue, and the consciousness started using much more centralized system. And then there came up endocrine system, and followed by that a nervous system. Now consciousness thought, okay, we need a more centralized system, more processing power, and it became there came a brain, and then the prefrontal cortex increased in size, the cerebrum increased in size, and then came the chimps, and it further felt that we need more processing power, and then came the humans and Neanderthals. And then now we are humans with enough processing power, and I guess this AI revolution is just taking it one step forward, because human brains are not do not have the capacity to think like think in the power of what a server, what a GPU can do to a normal coding thing. So I believe this AI is the next step into the human evolution of consciousness. And I also believe that it is a good step in future. So there was a question raised in this presentation. Will designers lose their jobs to these AI coming forward? And I would see, I'm a skeptic about AI because it would reduce the human, obesity was not an issue in the past because everybody used to have a physical uh, task somehow or other. They used to walk long distance, they used to cycle long distance. Now machines came up and obesity, diabetes, hypertension is an issue. So using AI is good for human beings in a way that it elevates human suffering in some ways, but it also could make people more dumber. Like, if I'm writing, say, an introduction about myself, I could spend like 4 hours and still not come up with anything, use all my mental energies and faculties. But if the AI is taking over me, the AI would write something about me, and now the muscles in my brain are not being exercised. So in that way, I consider AI to be, it's a con of AI. But in other way, I believe it's a good thing that, and it should happen that AI must take away jobs of these people. And why? Because it's the next step forward. Like long ago, there were natural healers, and when
So
scientific medicine came
I
into
had one
existence.
thought which is linked to what you were telling about AI not having a biological endocrine system or a that's another important thing which people are discussing, because if AI does not have a physical body, just like how humans or living systems have, then it might not have a perception of how time that we are perceiving as, and about aging or about lifespans. There is no concept of that to the for the AI brain, and it is certainly lacking in a lot of different aspects that we humans consider as fundamental to even being a human, or being conscious, or so. So what I have to say, I'll continue from here. Thanks, Vaskar. And so the AI might not be having the same understanding of reality as we are having, and it might be slightly mad or different. And let's see, is being different and mad a bad thing? So this painting, I guess you guys might have all seen this. This is the Starry Night by Van Gogh, and Van Gogh is one of the most famous painters that. And the story goes that this painting was actually made when Van Gogh was admitted to a mental asylum for being mentally challenged, or so being. And look at the paintings that he has made. So coming back to this, being slightly mad or different is not a really bad thing, and we can take inspiration from Van Gogh paintings. And coming back to the question, will AI cause more designers to lose their jobs? And I agree to what Bhaskar was saying. It might be a next step to the human evolution, and what AI had replied to this question is that AI will simply be used as a tool to help designers create new and innovative designs. So that's what we in Tansen.AI have been doing, and we have generated some insane amounts of designs and paintings, which are all using machine learning tools or AI. And these are some personal favorite of mine. These are inspired from cave paintings, because the cave paintings are going extinct all the time. And what really are these VQGAN+Clip models? And it's simply a system in which you take an initial image, add some noise to it, make it into a very noisy image, and you do the same steps in the reverse order, add some elements to the image, and get an image out of it. That's how it basically works. I'll not get into any of the mathematical details, and you really don't have to actually know the mathematics to run these codes or to experiment with these models. And this is the result. So I took a picture from my graduation days, and this is how the model had changed it to turn me into a metaverse cyborg being. And I have another question. So art can be defined in a number of ways, but generally it can be seen as a form of self-expression, where an artist uses their creativity to communicate their ideas, thoughts, or feelings. And when we think about AI systems, the real question comes down to whether AI is intelligent or AI is conscious. Can And I had a really interesting doubt to ask to some machine learning engineers, that if a calculator could be considered as a machine learning, what a calculator does can be considered as machine learning, or and it boils down to the same thing. So intelligence versus consciousness, is AI really conscious right now? It's very hard to tell, but there are many research papers which are telling that some AI models have already surpassed human intelligence levels. And how can we use the AI tools? We can expand any form of creative expression and create more out of the AI tools. So this uses the same GAN model, and this is a dancer in the background. And I will leave how this was achieved for you to think about. And it's a simple frame to frame converting to these styles and rendering it together. And let me ask you this question. So I hope you guys are learning something from this workshop, and in the coming talks you'll have a lot of people telling about real life use cases of AI and machine learning, and it's not just going to be about art. And is there any ethical concerns regarding AI? This is a very important and relevant question that we will have to ask. And the semiconductors which are used to make these CPUs and the components in the chipsets, they are mined out of some remote locations where people are enslaved for these jobs. It's causing a lot of destruction to our planet. And an example goes back to the time in which the transatlantic cables were laid down, and there was a particular type of tree where the gum of the tree was a really good non-conductor. So they could insulate these cables, and in huge amounts, insane amounts of forests in Malaysia and Indonesia have been cut down to harvest the gum needed for insulating those wires. And imagining about what is the historical damage done to create models, huge AI models like these, it will be impossible to calculate what are the hidden implications or the hidden aspects where these are causing a significant damage to our environment or our society. And another thing is the enslavement of human workforce, where the AI models, in the end, it works on the image classification. And when you go back in history, how these were initially built, there are a lot of people sitting and clicking on images and doing things, being enslaved to tasks which they are actually not enjoying doing. So that's where I would leave the discussion, and let's have some. If you guys have any thoughts or any questions or any interesting things to discuss, you guys can. So, Yadindra, what do you think? Amazon has recently released a AI coding assistant, so it will make coding really easier.
I think in the end, it'll just make it harder because people will continuously become less and less skilled. Ultimately, it's like that. But yeah, as for like how much it knows or anything, I just feel it's not yet conscious or anything that it can code for you. It has just seen a bunch of code and using that bunch of information, it's trying to predict some stuff.
And what about the? So there are some communities which might not have access to internet. They might not have. They might be cut off from the world, the coding world, or the AI. So we are actually when these systems will come when it's being widely used, the divide between these societies would sort of become large. Imagine some remote tribal community which might not have access to internet, while the entire society is going ahead using AI and advancing in a huge phase. Any thoughts on that?
Yep. That sort of divide can be seen here as well. It's like someone who has access to stuff like GitHub Copilot or something can like write code at much like in much like write code much faster, sort of. Yeah. So like these sort of tools which are not accessible for everyone and just accessible to the people who can pay for that service will like always increase the divide.
Okay, so the link that I have shared, if people are interested to look at the diffusion models, just click on run all and try to see if it's working for you guys, and it might ask for connecting to the Google Drive and give the permission for that. And let's carry forward with the talk, and let's see if the model is running. If anybody is getting into some trouble, and I will come back at a later time and tell you how to train it based on an initial image, and how to get your features, how to make your own pixel art, maybe your own pixelated Facebook picture, or the ID picture.
I've reshared the link which I initially shared of the collab notebook. So yeah, please by all means just go ahead with that. And if there are any doubts, like with starting up the collab notebook or anything, just type it in the chat. Thank you. Pranay, please continue.
Yeah. So, let's take some people in the work who are watching. Any thoughts? Anybody interested to share some interesting aspects? What you have thought about the AI and the art?
Yeah, so I think like we generally see that AI is not yet conscious, but I think we still have to like we still aren't clear what consciousness really is. So it may be.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, what really is consciousness? If you imagine a small fly, it has a set of 10,000 neurons, and it can fly around. It can find food. It can reproduce, make more copies of itself, and it has a perception level where it can maneuver complex object courses, obstacles, in a better way than maybe in a more advanced way than the drones right now. So, and it all within just 10,000 neurons. So maybe we might be underestimating what consciousness is, or we might also be having uh, mm, some prejudices based on human understanding of what is consciousness. So we might be putting that into the AI, understanding AI as well. And that's another thing that we'll have to think about, because if humans are making the AI models, and if there are some inborn biases, or the biases which humans have, let's say maybe a set of humans are racist, and a set of humans have certain biases towards certain colors, or and that would eventually be reflecting on these AI models. So if you imagine about something which we are creating, are we going to make the AI have the same biases and the same prejudices that we hold as humans? An interesting thought that we'll have to think about.
There's an interesting point in the chat by Nikhil. So he's asking, does AI know about the concepts like slavery and all, like if they're wrong? Because like AI is generating images which depict slavery and such things, and it's sort of very terrifying if it's not equipped with a moral compass to know these things.
Yeah, when it comes to morality, and definitely these topics, we when we think about what constitutes human morality, and will we be able to bring that down to a mathematical model? Any of you CS guys, or data engineers or data scientists, would you like to say something about that?
I mean, it's pretty difficult to understand what constitutes morality. Like anything more than that is sort of difficult to say, I guess, because at one point generating like deep fakes or stuff like that, or like simply being creative enough to write a script by itself, are sort of task considered like something which a human, some conscious being, only they can do, right? But now AI has done that. Maybe there will be some sort of time when AI can do other things as well, which conscious beings do, like a sense of morality or something.
Yeah, another interesting thing is that uh, these AI systems. So recently there was a case in which some of the AI models were used to develop new chemical weapons. So new molecular structures of biological toxins, they were developed using AI. And the way that we are going to use the AI, that's going to I think that will be in the hands of the people who are going to use it. And the more these models are available to people, and the more there would be people who would actually would try to misuse it as well. And when we talk about models like GPT-3, there are communities which moderate what kind of images or what kind of output it can generate, so that it's not screaming at people, or swearing at people. Uh, so that they have it's all there are a community of people who are moderating this whole process. And you, even if you try, you cannot uh, you might not be able to develop some images of hate speech, or something which might be obscene contents or something. So
Uh,
any more?
I think Pranay, someone by the name of Rahul raised their hand. I did not quite catch the full name, and now the hand is on. If anyone wants to speak anything, please speak up. It's a golden chance to discuss with a literal field expert here, guys. Like, don't miss out.
Hello, Pranoy.
Hey Rahul, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you? So I was just wanted to add a couple of things, not for the sake of argument or debate, but just a philosophical angle to it. Is AI faking creativity and consciousness? The term AI itself consists of this word intelligence. So now, can we look at a more basic question? Can intelligence fake consciousness? Or rather, we need to understand what, after all, consciousness is, as another friend of ours brought out, right? Second, on your point of is AI going to outdo the human artists and designers? Of course, yes. I mean, you people are more educated technologically. So, as far as the other scholars of the world go, they say that we are going to be like outclassed by the algorithms, and then we looking at our achievements in art, like we feel embarrassed and frivolous. Yes, it is going to take place. The designs created by algorithms are going to outclass us. Of course, yes. Thirdly, question of about morality. We need, again, there's a philosophical angle to it. First of all, we need to understand what this morality is. This term itself is born out of fictions and stories, right? It's just food for thought. We need to get the clear meaning of consciousness, morality, intelligence, first of all, and then maybe we can delve deeper.
Just information to all the people who are watching. So Rahul is a Air Force pilot, and he works in the Indian Air Force. He has been a Indian Air Force pilot for many years. So I have an interesting question to ask him. Do you think that pilots are going to be replaced by AI pilots? Because that's what we see in a lot of movies, and there's some projects done by USA of these, and many of these aeroplanes, they make use of a lot of data, and it's a AI system that's driving. I mean, I'm not really sure about how it works. So, can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it is happening as we speak. More and more drones, as you see, are taking over, and people say we are the last generation of pilots. And all these technological developments in the weapons field don't come to you directly, but yes, US and China, they're creating unbelievable, armed vehicles, UAVs, drones, as you call it. So yeah, it is growing, and yes, it will take over. This is what we feel about it.
That's really exciting times to actually live in, where the bigger AI models or even humanoid robots, which would help in daily life tasks. That would be something interesting to see, and I hope to see that in my lifetime. And
yeah, and yes, of course, intelligence wise, it is going to outclass us, because just look at the algorithms. I don't have much technical knowledge, but that's how I feel. And to understand what intelligence is, what consciousness is there a true self or not? I mean, we can delve deeper into it. It's a much philosophical thing to think upon. And today I was reading a book. Apparently, coincidentally, I was reading this book, 21 Lessons, which had a long para about a meaning of life and what consciousness is, what intelligence is. So Harari talks about this movie called Inside Out, which, yes, I'm going to revisit. And it has a very deeper message and meaning to it. And it does explain you what intelligence is, how we define it. And Coming to consciousness, it's just a personal view. I think consciousness is again a term created by us humans, and the content of our mind itself is consciousness. Think about it. Examine it. It's a very, very serious thing. It's not just a one-liner that I'm throwing, but it's just a food for thought. The content of your mind is consciousness.
Somebody is raising the hand.
Anshuman Gautam. Anshuman Gautam, please unmute and ask.
Hey Pranoy, thanks for such informative session. So my question is on the lines from the Rahul Bhai that, I mean, are there any products that Tansen.AI is working on in terms of training the models for the consciousness or the philosophical angle of life in general? Or it just focusing on image processing and making it easy for the musicians?
We have some projects going on, learning some storylines and having some getting the content out of the huge work pieces by Shakespeare and other people. And we are just making these models right now and just starting out. But definitely sounds like a really interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, most definitely. Big shout out to you. Thank you for such an informative session.
Hey, thank you. And coming back to yeah.
So there's this hypothesis argument where if you strip out an old ship's parts and replace them all one by one with new parts, it will be a new ship. If you take the old parts and construct the ship again, so which one of the ship was the old ship and which one belongs to previous ship? So in the same argument, like if you analyze all the 14 billion neurons of a human being and create exactly a machine version of those neurons, like each neuron weighing 0 or 1, like with flashing or not flashing, and create 14 billion neurons that flash in the exact same manner as a human being. Would you consider that consciousness, or would you call it another code?
The modeling of neurons, it's a very recent, the Hodgkin-Huxley models, which are the mathematical models of how the gated channels in the neurons work and how they create the action potential for neural firing. It's a very recent discovery. Maybe not even like 100 years of research have gone into these. And definitely the initial ideas of genetic algorithms and how the layers in the CNN, if you remember from the yesterday's Yatindra's informative session that he had done. And if you can imagine the neurons, actually, it's basically the why is it called CNN, because it's inspired from the neurons. And yeah, we are at a stage in which people like bigger companies like Tesla, they are getting the Neuralink, and there are people getting who have gone blind. They are getting their eyes back using artificial retinas, and it's a emerging field. And the more we understand how these things really work, and how even coming down to consciousness and perception, or even anything, it should be about understanding it in a very deeper level. And excited for the future.
One more question, all the art that has been that has made a difference. There's a saying like great music or great art comes from a positive soul. Like Lango was schizophrenic and he cut his ear off to stop hearing the audio hallucination, auditory hallucination. And all the cases of Chester Bennington, Kurt Cobain, and all these people, abused people, to suffer too much, but they showed something incredible to the world that was within them. So will the AI be bringing out something new, something revolutionary? I mean, something that will hit people deep into their core. Uh, and
Well,
like
that's
without
really
the human condition and
the rest of the workshop. You'll be meeting some more people, and they will show you some real life examples how the AI models have been used. And excited to see the next speaker, Saifiz. And I guess we are running out of time, so let's see. Bhaskar, your question will be answered, and AI, let's see if the AI is going to take over or change the world, and if it's going to come up with some revolutionary creative music or art. It's for us to see in the future. These models are being created and are being used, and more people are being aware about these models, there would be more artwork or more creative expressions coming out of it. It will be exciting to see in the future. Yeah, back to Yatindra. I guess we'll continue to the next speaker because we are already running out of time.
Yep, sure. I think they do have the access to collab. So guys, make sure to check it out and run it. It's a very interesting like collection of code. It'll be a very good learning experience. There's one small thing. Anshuman, your hand is still raised. Do you have anything more to discuss? I think it's just a glitch.
Oh.
So, Pranay, I think we'll take a short 5 minutes break here, and after that, like we can continue with Saif's presentation.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. And thank you, Yatindra, for organizing this wonderful workshop. Kudos to the KDAG team. Really nice.
And like thanks from the team to you, Pranay. It was a really interesting session, and I'm getting the feedback in my DMs right now. People are really enjoying something like this. It's like very rarely that something so deep and something which is so much focused on the very basics of AI happens in the KGP community. So thanks a lot for that, and I really look forward to the coming sessions as well.
Time for the break. See you guys after 5 minutes.
Along with that, due to several requests, we would be extending the deadline for the algorithmic art competition till 3rd July, end of day. So, like, please give in your submissions. It would be an interesting endeavor. Thank you.
Guys, we'll be starting again soon. And the next speaker that we've called in, Mr. Mohammed Saifiz. So, Mr. Saifiz is currently an architect, an entrepreneur, and a computational urban designer. He did his master's in architecture from the Bartlett School of Architecture, UCL. He works extensively in utilizing machine learning for urban design methods, and we'll get to know about the various caveats and how exactly machine learning is utilized in the field of architecture, along with how architecture plays into the new fads coming in, like metaverse and so on. So stay tuned for that, and uh, on to Saifiz.
Yeah, hello. Do you guys hear me?
Yep, you're audible.
Thanks. All right. Thanks for the intro, Yatindra. Yeah, let me
No
just share the screen. Yeah, let me know if it's visible.
Yep, it's visible.
All right. So again, hello everyone. Thanks for inviting me. Big opportunity to kind of share my work with you all and hopefully be inspired by the end of the talk. So before we start with the main content, I'll share a little bit about myself. So I finished my bachelor's in architecture from SPA New Delhi, after which I went to pursue master's in machine learning urbanism at UCL, and now I'm currently enrolled in international business management program at Middlesex University in London. So over the years, I've played an important role in setting up these two companies. So Codin, which is a global collaborative network of designers, kind of striving to push design innovations in the field of built environment. Guardian AUD is an architecture practice in Kerala, executing mostly residential and interior projects. And recently, Tansen.AI is a startup that provides creative solutions to artists. And I'm working with our previous speaker, Pranoy, as well on this project. So some of the things that we'll cover would be, like, it's more of an introductory talk. So we'll see a little bit about architecture and introduction to AI and some of the applications of machine learning from my previous works, how I've tried to implement them into the projects. We'll also look at how this could lead to a metaverse, a brief introduction to that, and also we'll explore some of the new trendy or AI art tools that architects are currently using to expand their kind of creative bandwidth. So the main topic of discussion about the impact of AI in architecture. So is it positive? Is it negative? When is it starting? Will it take away jobs? So like all these questions come up whenever we talk about AI. And before we answer these questions, I think we have like a lot of, we have to understand how architecture has evolved over the years and what are the developments that have happened. So if you look at the history, the field of architecture always tried to systemize the process of design. So in the timeline, you can see that it's split into two streams, so inventions and theories, which is like pure ideas. And on the other side, you have innovations, which is more like implementation of these innovations and theories. And one thing that you can notice is that there are, like, unlike many other fields, architecture hasn't seen any disruption. So it has always been interlinked, and one thing borrows elements from the past, and it's a constant incremental change in the design process, leading to the current scenario with architecture kind of interlinked with AI. And during the design process, when we involve computers for efficiency, the focus is mainly on two major aspects. Like one is variety, and two is the relevance of the output. So the model kind of positions some of our design techniques into perspective regarding variety and relevance. So as you can see, AI is able to provide us much more efficiency in our design process. And I'll share a few projects that I've been part of and talk about how we try to implement AI and machine learning models to provide us with few efficient solutions. And you can also see how these concepts of variety and relevance plays into these strategies. So the first project, this is a research called INTAG. So INTAG stands for Intelligent Aggregations. And the aim here is to provide a set of rules to discrete parts, different objects, and generate these aggregated architecture. And in that process, we'll also explore different spatial patterns and configurations and design methodologies. And as you can see in the image on the bottom left, it's an aggregation that's been formed based on a set of rules. And it's not just a random aggregation, because if you want to find how one component is connected to another, the model is able to find the shortest path reaching from any corner to the other. And that's, since it's rule based and it's able to identify shortest path, he'll slowly start to realize what are the further possibilities with these kind of research methodologies. So this is one of the experiments. So in architecture, especially with tower typologies, you'll have to come up with coming up with options of how do you decide what the external facade is going to be like. You could it could be like a railing, it could be exposed, it could have glazing, and these decisions are mostly made by us during the design process, and sometimes it doesn't really adapt to what are the exact factors that the building's facing. So we wanted to try to develop a process where the machine learning models would suggest and automatically place them in the positions based on the exact data falling on that particular area of the building. So we had developed three different facades for this experiment, and we developed a framework on how we would go about it. So to make it simple, we start with a cube, put some rules, and the computation generative algorithm develops like an aggregation. And then we select three factors to be considered, the three data sets, which is one is solar radiation, the sunlight falling on it. And then we were developing this typology of tower with the courtyard in the center. So we took the distance in the courtyard and also the height from the ground. So these factors goes in. The aggregation also goes in, gets fed into the k-mean clustering model, and we ask them to generate three different clusters. And this is because we had decided three different types of facade in the starting. Now the model is suggesting it based on the data that we've provided, and it automatically replaces the facade into the existing cube based on the data contributions coming in, and then you're able to get the output. So just to visualize this, you can think of it. So on the left side, you have the data coming in. So you have the solar data, you have the distance from the central axis, and then you have distance from the ground. And this would create three k-mean clusters on the side. And once you complete the whole script, you end up with kind of a final aggregation where all these are placed into and replaced into the initial cube that we had. So this was something that we realized, where just random selection, but then the output is customized according to the exact data coming in. And I think we also identify that if we are able to change the environmental data from one place to another, it automatically adapts to this. And once you have something like this, you're kind of excited and try to add a bit of life into project, right? Like adding a horse and a dog. So there was another experiment similar, but we wanted to try, instead of cubes, we wanted to try some different forms, and also another typology we wanted to explore. So this is related to sports. We had basketball court, swimming pool, football, futsal court, all aggregated, creating a new sports complex typology. Same process. I won't be explaining that in detail. But the thing was, what we got was interesting play of levels. And we added a new factor into consideration, where was material optimization. So we all, like initially we looked at solar and others. So now we are optimizing it based on the least material consumption to get a similar output. So 3 materials of glass, metal, concrete, these are all being calculated for each of these aggregations. Then these are the interior outputs that you see. So this is the third one. We're trying with new parts, hexagon, extruded, having living units, and also parts. This is a work in progress. We're currently working on this. And we are looking at floating architecture typologies and clusters. And so when you move from one context to the other, of course, the environmental factors and situations and the variables keep changing. So you adapt them. And this is also where the human element comes in. So the designer or the architect figuring out which are those important aspects that has to be fed in as variables. So in this case, we took only 2 of them to right now focus on the process. So we have the solar radiation analysis, and also the explorer terraces, because it's floating architecture. We wanted more community space and activities to happen on those terraces. So we were optimizing it based on this. And once all the aggregations are put together, we run it through an optimization algorithm to pick which one scores more in these 2 factors. And that particular algorithm is then run through the k-mean clusters. So again, in this case, we have 15 clusters, and the number has been decided by the designer. So we have 9 living units and 6 platforms. So like you would ask, how is this number decided? It's purely up to the designer to select. So if you're trying to create an aggregation or a cluster with, let's say, a residence, an office, and a shop or retail, you can give 3 clusters, right? Because all 3 are different functions. So, and if you have 2 types of residences, you could further divide them into 1 more cluster. So like it's all up to you on what kind of design are you looking for and what kind of functions you're planning to include. So this is like a work in progress, but I just wanted to share it for the presentation. So if you look at the initial aggregation, you have just those parts, the hexagon, extruded, and platforms. But then right now, the output looks like this because it automatically places all these roof, windows, glazing, terraces, skylights, everything according to the data that we've fed into the model. So these are the 3 options. So like as many options you want to try, you can keep trying, but it always makes sense in the output. And in the end, you might just pick one that looks better aesthetically. So this was the one that finished the research on an architecture scale. Now I'll talk about something on an urban scale, and this was a project that I worked at UCL at Bartlett, and since it's on an urban scale, we have to identify an urban issue and try to figure out solutions for it. And urban fragmentation was the main focus. So it's an issue caused by transportation infrastructure, creating these redundant patches in between, and also causing barrier for movement of vehicles as well as pedestrian on the ground level. And since we were in London, we mainly looked at the UK. So the kind of strategy, again, we come up with a framework on how to move about it. So we have to identify a site to work on the project. Then the micro-analysis would be collecting data, and then we do a data analytics part where we extract outputs or inferences from the data. We create forms out of the data, merge it with the strategy, and then get the solution, and maybe run it again to see if the new design has actually improved the situation. So like I said, we looked at the whole of UK, divided it into grids, and we called each grid a fragment. And now we are giving some kind of rating system, which would figure out the areas that are mostly affected by fragmentation. So kind of curve length and all these factors were added to see which fragment has more the curves and these infrastructure being cut through. And once we do it, we were able to get around 140 to 150 different fragments that are affected. And London was the most affected one. So we started focusing on London. So at this point, when we look deeper, we need to have more data sets that give us a more resolved conclusion. So you look at what are the impacts of urban fragmentation and try to generate data accordingly. So we looked at crime data and other, like a lot of this data on London scale. And we stacked up one against each other, and then you take each point, each fragment, and try to extract the score for each of them. And this way we were able to finalize that the King's Cross area is the most affected by fragmentation, and that was our site moving forward. So this is one process to identify a site on an urban scale. And next, then comes the part where you collect data. So we looked at mostly land use, social data, noise, visibility, perception, movement. Some of the data sets that might have been affected by the urban fragmentation issue or something as an impact of fragmentation. So we collected a lot of data from open sources, common sources, crime, income, IMD, employment data, land use data, green spaces, building heights, as many data as possible. Like the good thing about this is that when you do some data analytics, it's better to get as many as possible and then run the models to see if it makes sense. So not before going up with a more subjective human-centered approach and then removing certain data that might have made more sense to the model. So this is the approach that we took. And for the data that we did not have, we had to run some simulations. Like in the case of visibility, we ran some isoist analysis, some noise kind of analysis, extracted that data. We did some study on the network, existing network, and kind of look at the connectivity of the existing network. Also looking at the movement and the kind of transportation infrastructure in place. So once you have all this data, we are ready to do the analytics part, right? So you stack up all the data. There were even more data, but for visual purposes, I think this is how it looks like. We kind of normalize the data and analyze it together. And we also threw out some of the data that did not quite make sense or was affecting the model in a bad way. So once we had it, we mostly used unsupervised methods, and it's something that I've worked more on. So we did some dimensionality reduction methods to get some inferences from there to see which are the areas. And the interesting part is you're also constantly relating to the existing geographic scenarios. When you see the data, you see these two areas are maybe mostly affected or are acting weirdly. And then you've been to that place and you know it, but then you're trying to make this connection of why is this happening? So when we run the K-mean clustering, you get areas similar that act similarly, and then we do an analysis on it. And we put these together to finally identify which are the boundaries for the site. And we do it in a way that these impacted areas are also included, so that once we come up with a solution, we can prove that, yeah, we've solved this part. And so when we start the design process, like the inner part of the site is empty. So we started generating a new network for the site. And this, we run it through some genetic algorithms. And once we generate it, we try to do the analysis part based on some factors to pick the best network possible. Now, once we have a new set of data, there were another set of data called the speed, which was important in our initial analysis, which was dependent on the network, right? So we didn't have a network initially. So we used the training set to train the model on understanding the relationships between these 4 data sets. And then we used it again by replacing the initial network with the newly generated network to extract new data set for the speed to see how the speed might be. And this would affect, kind of influence the spaces around the new network. So this is another place where we use kind of a regression modeling. And once we have all the things together, we can now run another clustering into like 6 different zones and give functions, allocate functions by studying the data contributions. So this is the overall kind of process that led to the design. And once you overlap it with the strategies that we had initially, you get the final design. So it's like a huge platform that is very well integrated with the existing street network. People can walk around pedestrian friendly. It covers up the railway lines in places where there are high noise and opens up in places where there is low noise for the railway line. And that's the kind of output that you get. So here you can see some of these spaces that were provided functions like sports arenas, open air theaters, mixed use development. Wherever there were like empty patches, it could take up some functions. These are some of the renders. So you can see all the trees and every furniture that you see are generated from the data points. So some of the data points that were clustered as green spaces were then converted to trees. Or so it was a really cool project that we've been part of, and even some of the lighting on the surfaces were also extracted from the data that we received. And once we have all the design together, we put it on the real context and then go back to how it all started, right? And then we run the analysis again to see if the design actually made the situation better or worse. So fortunately, it got a bit better. You can't always solve the whole thing, but at least make it better. It was an experiment research thing. And then we were also supposed to do a physical exhibition of our project, but unfortunately it was during COVID and we couldn't do it. But we were looking at some virtual ways to do it. So that's when we came across a platform called Hubs by Mozilla. So Hubs is it's an open source platform by Mozilla that allows you to set up virtual environments and have meetings and calls, and exhibitions, presentations, etc. So we had our exhibition set up and people were invited and our work and everything were displayed. And like you can see, like you can move around the spaces and have a really cool experience and interact and talk about the work live. It was a really cool period when we launched the exhibition. People, friends, and everyone was coming, and like it's connected to your mic, so you can have a live discussions about what you're seeing widely move around. And this is basically what Metaverse is, right? It's a 3D virtual replica of our societal construct, where people kind of come together in a virtual world, new experience, share ideas. So, and maybe with this, I'll slowly segue into the concept of Metaverse. This was my entry to the understanding of what Metaverse was. So, like a brief insight into Metaverse and architecture and Metaverse. And most of like the concept of Metaverse is not something new. It has always existed, especially in the gaming industry. And but it kind of come into the limelight recently with the launch of like Meta coming up and some of the other architects and designers and companies taking notice. And our popular experience of it has been mainly through either novels or movies like Matrix or Ready Player One. And each time we depict the concept of Metaverse, it's been dystopian, or the world we live in is not good enough, or something like that. And so, like, where are we headed? Are we going in a trend where we design a metaverse when we are fed up with the way we live in today? And the answer kind of lies in how we build it, like the intentions of people who build it. And it's an entirely different ball game. As architects, we've been creating buildings for 50 years. That has to last 50 years. And we use contextual and environmental information to kind of guide the design. We utilize all the natural resources, the patience to see the whole structure get built, how to master it. But in the world, in this kind of a virtual world, the possibilities are kind of endless. You could even design places like Mirror Dimension in Doctor Strange, or experience being among the planets, like a place that maybe we may or may not get a chance to be there, but then we can have this experience through the metaverse. And the concept of what a building is and what urban design is will probably change. And who we call as architects will also probably change. And there will be more and more focused on visuals and geometry and spatial experiences. And companies have already started creating their own world, their own metaverses, and with NFTs and everything coming, there'll be a whole new economy around it. So it's pretty exciting to be part of. And then, so this brings down to the question of who are the architects of the metaverse, right? Who are designing it? And I think when we take away the physical constraints around design, the design constraint then becomes a reflection of our creative and imaginative constraints. And with the recent developments in the AI tools, and these barriers can easily be thrown out. And that's how it ties well with everything that's going on in the recent times. And these are some of the concept arts produced by AI for the metaverse. And it might be things that we might not have thought about, but once we have it in place, now you can maybe build something towards it, try to make it or execute it. And so as we move on to the next part and explore maybe some of the AI tools that are being used by architects to kind of broaden their imagination, I'll share a small data sculpture project that we worked on. So this is also at Bartlett. And the exercise was to take a bunch of points, add a layer of data, and create a form. And this was called rewriting. And it was an exercise to see what kind of interesting forms can you come up with. And it was kind of limited when you have one set of data. Now, of course, there is creativity within this, but then we were thinking, why don't we do this? Why don't we get 4 layers of data? Right? And then we do, like, instead of a 2D grid, let's do a 3D grid because it's a sculpture. So why don't we make it 3D? And this led to this. So we had, instead of just one form, one way to create a form, we thought we'll do 4 steps and 4 data sets. And instead of just the spheres, we'll use different forms of like micro modules. So in this case, you can see some of the points get removed, and it's kind of like an explosion that we simulate, and then we add these and replace these points with these volumes and then add color to it. So this was the 4 steps, and the 4 data set were like some urban data set that we were kind of adding up. And then we were getting more and more excited. We were like, oh, this option looks really cool. So why don't we try something? We all like math. So let's add a permutation spin on it. So we thought, since we have all the 4 data, why don't we switch the order of the data set? And then, then we were done with, we ended up with this. So this is the thing that I talked about initially. It's about the kind of variety that you get, but if you're trying to do something creative, it's also about the relevance of it, the variations of it. And now when you have all these in place, you can pick and choose which is the best one and move forward. And so that's the main idea behind this whole process, is to expand creativity. That's why we shifted from having just one output to generating multiple outputs and then now finalizing. So if we were to set up an exhibition, we can either put all of them or pick any one of them, which is the kind of like the best output possible. As you can see, the 24 outputs that we had, it's all different, all unique, and everything represents a set of data. Yeah. So I was showing this because recently so this was kind of a very creative approach to that time when we were doing this at Bartlett, and we were applauded for coming up with this kind of approach that created these beautiful sculptures. So recently, I was just thinking about it, and then I went on and tried to do something like this with the AI tool. So you get one kind of intricate data sculpture, and maybe you didn't like it. You wanted it to maybe make it a little bit shorter, so you get something like this, different color. Or if you want another shape or form, or maybe enlarge the bottom part a bit, you end up with something like this. And then you just go on, right? You want to see more variety. You want to see the different iterations that it can give. So you keep going, right? You can pick, the choices are endless, or you go even more. And now you can see it's not, the variations that are involved are a lot. Like even with the data sculptures that we had, they looked kind of similar, but unique. In this case, you're able to see way more variations in the options, even more. Right? You can keep going more, even more. So yeah, you get the point. Like, was that creative enough? Is the kind of question that I would ask. Like, if we were called creative for coming up with 24 options that were different, is this how many? 48, 96 options. Is that creative? So like, I want you guys to think about these data sculptures. So many variations, right? And this could lead to many philosophical questions. Like, is AI creative? We could even start questioning what creativity is at this point and how do we define it? Or should we define it using our ego in a human-centric manner? Should we define it based on the process or the output? And these are the kind of questions that most people try to figure out. Are we even as creative as we imagine? And these questions don't really need an answer, but it's something that we're very curious to find. So I'll show a bit of the recent developments that has happened in architecture when it comes to AI, and especially the kind of tools, right? So how are architects using these AI tools to improve their workflow? And I'll share some of the work of the popular architects, and we can discuss a little bit about how this can be incorporated at this point. So among the few models that Pranoy mentioned in our previous talk, you might have also come across something called Midjourney, where you provide keywords and you produce a visual output, right? So this is one of the systems out there that most architects are utilizing. So you can see there are some options by Arturo Tadeschi experimenting on design of chairs. You can also see variations in columns, few architectural elements that you can try out. Some fluid spaces, interior, exterior, even furnitures of that sort, or surreal architecture. And we could clearly imagine this being constructed or come into existence, right? And if you look at the details of what the AI is being able to achieve, it's quite fascinating. You could also go a bit more traditional and want to achieve something more formal that can be constructed easily or integrated with the nature and see how that works. And some of them have been exploring different worlds, cities. And of course, I couldn't just sit and watch. I had to try it out myself to see how the model works. These are the prompts that I gave. Fire building underwater for the fishes. And you get these options, and then you can build on them further. Another one, a tree house in Mars with balloons and helicopters. That gives you this. And these are conceptual images, right? So if you're stuck with ideas, just type out some words. It opens your mind immediately. And then another one we want to try with an architect's style, so a glass and a steel penthouse with sloping roofs and everything, in the style of a famous architect named Antonio Gaudi. So that was one prompt. Another one, water dragon architecture and reflections on water, gives you all this. So of course, with all disruptive technology and speculative change, there will always be resistance from the masses and expressions of insecurities. And you'll face questions like, are our jobs finished? Like, won't clients ever need us, etc., etc. And the way I think of it as a design tool, like the visual explorations can give us a starting point for designers, right? Some visual ideas. And it can help you distinguish from what clients can see. Like, that's also what happens recently, right? Clients going out on the internet and finding. But these are something that you can slowly develop based on your ideas. And I'll show you a small example of how this could work. So if we were to design a skyscraper and we don't know when to start, or we're slowly waiting and delaying our time to come up with inspirations or concepts, instead you can just go here, add the prompt in, tall parametric skyscraper made of glass located on the, I don't know, coast, twisted design, whatnot. So you get options, and then you can either keep going, try different options like till you like something, or then you pick one of them. We can pick the first one, and then you get that, and then you further go to a software, a 3D software, and develop it somehow. Right? So I've done a small basic one to show you how this can be done. And now this is actually within parametrician, computational design now, can be taken for construction, and add the details through our conventional method, like the computational method. And this is how it could help designers. It helps us speed up our process of coming up with a concept. And the input is very simple. And then you can figure out how to develop it. So there was a discussion that took place in the last talk about perspectives that we commonly have. Is like it's a bit like a competition with the AI models, but to be honest, I've never seen it that way. The AI is something that we've developed. It's a tool for us to reach our goals faster, right? So instead of thinking or being threatened, or in simpler terms, like, I know I'm oversimplifying this, like a calculator is way more advanced in computing these equations, or those calculating numbers than I am, right? But have you ever thought of it as a competition? Because we constantly focus on getting the output, so it gives us an output much faster. We don't have to be worried about it. Like, we focus on getting things done. And if we keep seeing AI as tools, I don't think this would be that much of a problem. And regardless of what job or what task we're doing, if we don't learn or if we don't analyze what we're doing, communicate with people who are in the field, make major decisions to constantly improve our skill set, we're going to lose our jobs anyway, like even to other people, let alone AI. So if we keep doing that, I don't think there's anything that we'll have to worry about. And like those quotes, the best way to predict the future is to create it, or at least be among the people who would in the future create it. So yeah, I think in that positive note, I'll conclude my talk for the day. And if you guys have any questions or about the things that I've shared above, you guys can ask me, or we can have a casual discussion and continue what the previous speaker had talked. And then it's the same topic of AI and consciousness and creativity and these kind of things. So that's it from me.
Folks, if you have your questions, please go ahead and ask. And Saifiz, that was amazing. I myself was not aware we could use things like PCA and K-means and stuff like that for architecture and like all the stuff you discussed. It was pretty amazing. But like more than all that, I'm getting DMs for your presentation. Like the presentation looks so spectacular. People want it in like PDF format to make wallpapers out of it.
Oh, it's cool. I can share it. I can share it with them.
Same goes for Pranay's presentation as well, but it sort of increased threefold once you started presenting.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, right? It's like if you look deep into the applications of it, like maybe it's like it's not entirely our cup of tea to start with. Like we didn't start as programmers. Most of us didn't have a background in it, and we're slowly trying to understand and get the grasp of the models and how data works and everything. So like the more we reach out to people and more different fields of expertise come together, I think we'll be able to provide better solutions for the future. And that's what I feel. And with the discussion that you were having and some of the like yesterday's workshops and stuff, I was going through it. Pretty cool.
Thanks a lot. Yep. People, last call. If you have any questions or anything to discuss about, please unmute and ask right now. I guess let's wait for a minute or two. After that, we'll conclude with a note of thanks.
Hi, sir. So my question is, like, if we can use the data from an ant colony or a bee colony or say a moth colony, because that seems pretty creative structure for presumably non-intelligent being like ants with minimal cognitive capacity, and build a tower that has intricate networks for all movements, all the logistic movements of food, waste, of everything. How difficult or easy would that?
Vinay, can you repeat it a bit? The voice was breaking.
Okay, the question is, like looking at the ants and the bee colonies, they make out of mud and whatever particles are available on the nature. How difficult or easy is that? That seems to be pretty efficient for given like 1,000, 10,000 ants living in one small colony made out of simple structure that can withstand weather, withstand rain, storms, anything that has protective measures for armies and logistic parts for movement of food, for movement of waste, for hosting the buildings and that is pretty creative, pretty efficient for presumably non-intelligent beings. How difficult or easy is that to create something like some kind of architectural design as such in big cities where human beings using AI?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's like, in my opinion, it's easy, but again, the question, like, our understanding of what is required to actually construct a building, like the architects or designers or engineers out there who actually do it, the models that we develop haven't taken a lot of these things into consideration. So even right now, you'll have to work hand in hand, and it's not completely driven by AI. So if you were to develop that, it'll take many years and also processing of a lot of data. But there are softwares coming up that, like BIM softwares, that take in data for information modeling and incorporate kind of elements of AI into it to make it more intelligent. So I think in the near future, we'll definitely see some of these happen. And based on the work that we did, if we figure out ways to kind of attach it to BIM somehow, that way we might be able to close the loop. Hopefully, like the more research to be done there. But like to reach this level, I think we can all take some time and then develop it. But to keep pushing it further, I think it's a bit challenging. But we'll get there. There are people who are already working on it way ahead, so it's a good sign. Yeah, thanks for the question.
Cool. That was one interesting question. Do anyone else have anything to discuss? Please unmute and ask.
Pranay, what do you think about creativity? Is AI creative?
I do think the AI is incredibly creative, and it boils down to, can we so the number of colors that we have in the spectrum of our understanding, it is limited. So limited set of, from the larger subset of every frequency of visual elements.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe AI is more creative than we are imagining right now. And we are underestimating the AI.
And we are trying, and I think we are dumbing it down a little bit so that we understand it.
Yeah, if the AI has to bring down what it would understand from what inputs that you give, and boil it down to understandable form of output that we are perceiving as what we can use, but it might have a larger understanding of the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
And these tools, I feel earlier, when you see historically, people had very limited access to colors. So the caveman, they painted using red, mostly red, black, and white. While over the time you see development of more different palettes and different kinds of colors evolve, and later even the blue is considered a color which is sacred during the Victorian era. So if you see all the paintings of Jesus or Mary, that they would have the blue in the background because it was a rare color, and they wanted to give it to the god, use that color for a picture of the god. But right now it's a digital medium where all the colors are in your hand, all the colors are in the codes, and you can use any color, and you don't have to go get paint or do anything. So it just opened up infinite possibilities in the hands of any designer who is willing to actually make use of that. And using AI now, it's adding another layer of it's multiplying the amount of creativity that could be achieved. So that's what I feel. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Like it's in my opinion, it's taking away the challenges and helping us think about like new things that can come up. So if this part is taken care of, right, the creative block was a big challenge for creative artists. So now when you think of ideas, now if that part is overcome, where do we invest this time? Like now we can maybe put this in innovating in something else. And I think that's what the best part of these developments are. It's a really cool, exciting time to be in. Another thing about jobs as well, that I was looking at some of these data that was being released, and it was saying that there will be around, I don't know, 40 million jobs that would go away because of AI. But there were like 75 million jobs that would be created in different sectors. So like we're always worried about these things. It's when we are insecure about our position and not trying to improve and wanting to stay in the same place and be comfortable. So better jobs come up. So, like, I don't think that would be a problem. And like I showed in the metaverse thing, right? It was also another discussion, a similar thing that comes up, that how will it be in the metaverse? Right? When metaverse comes up, a lot of people are now getting jobs in creating virtual worlds. So that's how it is. So many architects would slowly move to the metaverse. That's how it is. We'll have to accept the reality and keep improving ourselves.
Tomorrow there will be Jangid will be giving you guys an interesting talk about how to start and deploy a model, and that will be interesting. And also it's time to get hands-on on the recent technologies that people are using. That way you are already staying ahead of the whole scene. It's not just about doing small projects, and so it's also about putting your own creative ideas into what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to do some machine learning or data projects, it's not just, don't be about like going to GitHub, getting some code, doing the same thing. Try to think of your own new ideas. Maybe right now you know about more tools, and using AI, you can add another layer of complexity to it, and you can develop many things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. That was very insightful, both Pranay and Saifiz. Like, I personally very much, I thoroughly enjoyed the session. both the presentation and got to learn a lot of new things. So thanks a lot for the session from the side of the entire KDAG team and the Kharagpur Data Analytics community as a whole. Like Pranay is basically the person who made all of this possible. This like if it was not for Pranay, it might just have ended up as a student done workshop. But Pranay showed his interest, guided us as well, and like showed us to different people who were actually working in the industry. And so now we have this workshop going with like 5 different speakers from different domains and like from different parts of the world. So that is very beneficial for us, like the KGP data analytics community as a whole. People are getting a lot of like new stuff to learn. Like everyone here is very appreciative, and so I bear the thanks to both of you guys from the community. Thanks a lot.
I would also like to thank the attendees for attending the session, and make sure you join tomorrow as well. I would also like to invite submissions for the algorithmic art competition, whose deadline would be deadline. Thank you.
Cool, guys. Let's conclude the session for today. Thank you.